10 sneaky signs of burnout that you definitely want to pay attention to so that you don't find yourself in burnout town. And as someone who took the fast train there and had to find my long way back from being exhausted, depleted, resentful, completely overwhelmed, completely drained, completely uninspired, the full shebang of burnout, which, let me tell you from someone who's been there and has the tattoo, sucks. It just sucks. These are some signs that were a little bit below my radar that I want to bring to your attention so that you don't get on the train, man. You don't get on the train and you don't find yourself in burnout town because of everything I just said. Aloha, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome back to another episode of the Movement, Mind, and Meaning podcast. I am here today to talk to you about some subtle signs that are really important for you to pay attention to because they are markers of what I consider the most important thing: how you feel. Really. Everything, for the most part, that we do because we think it's going to give us some sort of feeling and effect in our body. And it's so important that we tune into that as a motivating factor, as a driving factor, as a component of your holistic success. Because yes, the KPIs and the goals and the accolades and the certifications, those are amazing. And as a Capricorn oldest child, I love my gold stars. I love my gold stars. Okay? I know you probably do too. But the truth is, beautiful one, that how you feel and your mental health and your emotional health and your spiritual health and your physical health are literally the most valuable assets that you have. And the communication system of your body, i.e. of your nervous system, is subtle. And so it's so important that you start to tune to these subtle cues, both in yourself and in your team, so that you are nurturing and you're paying attention and you're making sure that the mic's on before you go on a rant. That was just for me. So before we get too deep into the 10, would it be helpful for you to have your own custom GPT that helps you in these stressful situations of being in business, running a business, being in sales, and have this literally at your fingertips that you can use at any time to help you to keep calm and close on? Well, I'm thinking about creating a workshop, or maybe I have already created at this point. I don't know. It's in the ethers and in my brain. So if you're interested in creating your own sales GPT, your stress-free sales GPT, i.e. on ChatGPT, like to have at your fingertips to use to encourage you, like a business mindset life coach, me in your pocket at all times. Not that I'm a business or a mindset or a life coach. I'm in your pocket as a stress resilience coach. But I can help you train it to do all those other things as well. Would you be interested in that? Hit reply to my email or send me a message on the message places. What are those called? Social media. And let's talk, okay? Let's talk. So, yeah, if you don't know that story with me, I got to a point where in my old house we moved, and which is why the background of this podcast, if you're watching the video, is a little bit bland at the moment. Stay tuned. I've ordered something fancy for the blank wall behind me. And if you're listening to the audio, it's a blank wall behind me. Anyways, in my previous house, I would pull, and I do this here on my new lanai, which is lovely, pull my yoga mat outside and just lay on the ground and cry when I got to the point of being exhausted and being burnt out and completely depleted. And it got to the point where I would just watch a leaf. I don't know that it was the same leaf or maybe it was different ones. I would just watch the leaves like, dangling from spider webs, just getting whipped around and really resonate with them and feel like I was barely holding on by a thread and really getting to that point of wanting to blow it up and run away and move to the middle of the ocean again. And I mean, if you've done that twice already, what else can you do? Speaking for myself. Yeah. So there's many factors that are involved in what causes burnout, a depletion of our nervous system, chronic stress, which is associated with chronic disease, of course, finding that imbalance between the effort and what we receive back from it. That's a really big underlying cause, as well as feeling like everything is out of your control or you have minimal control in the situations, not having as much social support, whether that's virtual or in person, that really is on the journey with you. Those are really key factors. And then, of course, the overload of the brain, the overload emotionally, that all impact our nervous system, are all key factors in what is known to be underlying causes and lead to burnout. But one of the things that really, the imbalance that's very clear for a lot of people, which I'm going to be chatting about in my next episode, is the imbalance between work and play. And truly underlying that is the imbalance between the doing and the being, and also the effort and joy. And joy is really a key factor in your overall well-being and how it's so nourishing for the nervous system. So we'll talk more about that. Don't ruin it, Megan. Okay, keep going. 10 things that might be these subtle cues from your system that it is getting really taxed and it is asking for love and attention. Signals from your nervous system are like any other signals from your body, right? You probably don't get really annoyed and pissed off when your stomach rumbles because you haven't eaten for 4 hours, right? Or when you notice that you're a bit sleepy at the end of the day. You're not like, oh God, you again, must we always do this? No, right? You probably think, okay, maybe I need a snack. Maybe I should have a little cheese string and some vegetables or whatever, right? And so we want to look at these cues as information, neither good nor bad, right? The information from your body is neutral. And so it's really important that you look at these through the really 3 foundational core tenets of the work that I do inside the Power Pause method that I really, really place. And I know because there's so much research outside of what I've done. I haven't done research other than the work that I do. There's research that validates these 3 core tenets. And when we go through these 10, keep this in mind. Look through the lens of compassionate curiosity, right? Are these applying to you? If so, take it to heart. If not, keep it in your mind, right? You may notice it in teammates or coworkers, or maybe your assistant, maybe your partner, maybe your friends. You probably have some workaholic friends, especially if you are in the entrepreneur community, or, if you're in high profile positions, that's something that's often very valued. So pay attention to these and just learn, right? Be here to learn. I'm sure you have a growth mindset, if most podcast listeners do. So compassionate curiosity, number 1, non-judgmental self-awareness, right? And so when we look at these, we're not going to judge ourselves for having 5 out of 10 or whatever it is, right? So again, not letting the underlying critical nature of the mind dictate that these are problems, faults, flaws. If they are ones that are existing for you, then just be really mindful of that. Okay, so compassionate curiosity, non-judgmental self-awareness, and gratitude. Gratitude, because the more we know, the better, right? And the more we learn about ourselves, the more we can support and nourish and integrate these parts of ourselves back into the wholeness. That's really the journey, is coming back to that place of wholeness and integration of all of these parts of you that deserve to be recognized and loved and witnessed and seen, right? That's really this journey. So keep those 3 core tenets in mind, right? Just keep it in your mind, keep it in your heart. And let's talk about the 10 sneaky signals that burnout might be around the corner. 1, do you find yourself snappy and irritable, right? Do you notice that maybe your patience is a little bit lessened or shorter, right? If things are starting to bother you that you normally would have been like water off a duck's back before, that's something to really tune into. What's happening here is the emotional regulation centers in the brain become fatigued with chronic stress. And so we have an upper limit to how much we can tolerate at the level that we did before. And so it can be harder to manage stressful situations, comments that might have just been like, no big deal, might cause you to tear up and get activated or triggered, right? So one, noticing if you're maybe a little bit more irritable, or you're getting short, or you're feeling impatient. Number two is, do you find yourself disengaging, right? Things that normally you would have done before that you just don't have it in you. If you hear yourself saying stuff like that, I just don't have it in me, I'm tired, I just don't got it. That sort of thing. Feeling disconnected from things that brought you joy. Maybe it's your work, maybe it's your creative outlets, maybe it's relationships, right? And so really what's interesting here is that after prolonged stress, the motivation system of the brain, where we have our dopamine receptors, which are involved in us getting up and taking action, it becomes less responsive under stress. So stress impacts the whole body, right? Including the brain. I mean, hello, it's definitely, the supercomputer of the whole thing. So feeling yourself disengaging. Number three, physical symptoms, right? So maybe you're noticing headaches, aches and pains. Maybe it's digestive issues, right? Because our second brain is in our stomach, right? And so a big part of our nervous system actually exists in your gut. And so maybe some gut issues, elimination issues, digestion, maybe bloating, that sort of thing are things to really look out for. And so that can really, that's again, a subtle signal that your body is attempting to communicate with you. Number four is chronic fatigue, that feeling of tired but wired, like having, maybe you get a full night's sleep and you wake up and you're just like, woof, holy moly, I'm still super tuckered out. Maybe you have a hard time sleeping through the night or falling asleep. Like, do you wake up to the anxiety alarm clock in the middle of the night, right? And I mean, let's be real, the world is fucking crazy right now. Like, all around the world globally, there's so many crazy things happening. And so it's really important to honor the collective, because there's a lot of stress in the collective of humanity, right? Not just here in America, but around the world. There's a lot of stress. And so you are tapped into that. You're part of the divine web of the universe. And of course, whether you feel it outright or not so much, you're impacted by that. Right? And so it's just important to think, okay, well, how's my sleep been? How's the quality of my sleep? Do I wake up feeling rested? So that's another one that can be an indicator, right, is chronic fatigue, needing the uppers, if you will, like caffeination or sugar, or finding that, you're not getting that same boost from exercise as you did before. So that's important. Number five is reduced productivity, right? So if you've listened to this podcast before, you know that when we're experiencing stress, we're active in our amygdala, which is the threat detection center of the brain, and your prefrontal cortex, which is the big brain right up front part of the brain, I should say, is not online, right? And so when our prefrontal cortex, which is our cognitive function, the CEO of the brain, decision-making, creativity, focus, clarity, uplifted, vibrant leadership, energy, where all of that comes from, when we're experiencing stress, that part of our brain's not online. So you may feel like it's just like pulling teeth, but you ain't at the dentist to get things done. Okay, so if you notice that it's hard for you to get motivated to take action, or if you're on your computer and you have, 82 windows open, as I look at my computer, and there's probably easily like 50 windows open right now, but I know what everything is. I don't know. Anyways, I'm not going to judge myself. And so if you notice, a drop in your ability to get things done or finish or follow through, or you default to the 8 protective patterns, the way that we sabotage our movement forward, that like procrastination and perfectionism, or controlling yourself. Like, there's a lot of ways that stress shows up more subtly. So again, if you're noticing any of these, just notice it, right? Come back to that compassionate curiosity, non-judgmental self-awareness, and gratitude, right? The more we know, the farther we go. Was that on a commercial? I'm having a flash of, like, when I was a kid, cartoon. I just squirreled big time. But the more you know, I think it was like the anti-drug commercials when you were a kid. I'm 46, so anyways, definitely got a little sidetracked there. Let's get back on track. The more you know, the further you go. I love making up little jingle jangles so that we can, learn. Anyways, okay, so so we have reduced, if you've noticed, reduced productivity. That's number 5. Number 6. This sort of piggybacks on the disengagement from, pulling back from social life and what have you. Is number 6 is loss of interest in things that you've really enjoyed before. You're just like, it's not that you don't even want to, or you don't have the energy for it, which is what we talked about earlier. Now it's just like, no, I don't want to. And you feel yourself withdrawing, right? And that resistance, that's really important for us to be aware of, because this is, again, that dulling of the motivation, dulling of the pleasure centers in the brain. And we're just not seeing the reason to do it because we're just kind of feeling so blasé and we're tapped out, right? And we're really like, what's happening is the nervous system is so upregulated, so stressed that it's using its internal energy sources, resources at such a high level that your energy level is low because you're running on cortisol and adrenaline. You're not running on that naturally resourced, regulated, balanced nervous system. It's very much that frantic and frazzled and on the go, that, tightly wound energy. And so when we're done our work for the day, if you will, then there's just nothing more to give, right? And so it's like that where you find yourself, and this is maybe a side caveat of that, is do you find yourself at the end of the day just needing to numb out, right? Maybe it's drinking, maybe it's, other substances, maybe it's social media, maybe it's whatever. And so do you find yourself kind of almost disassociating at the end of the day rather than doing the things that you would normally have done or that you truly, in your heart, in the past at least, love to do? Okay, so that's important. That's important. Next one is frequent illnesses or infections. Okay, again, this is really important because the stressed out nervous system is more prone to catching colds, catching fevers, getting sick because of the impact of stress on our immune system, making us more prone to these things that normally maybe you wouldn't have dealt with before, right? And so it's harder for the body to fight off infections if it thinks that it needs to run for its life, right? There's a prioritization here, because if you're experiencing that high level of stress, then your brain is thinking, well, where's the threat? Where's the tiger? Like, we got to get out of here. We need to first survive the situation. We can deal with this infection later once we get out of the danger zone, right? That's what's happening internally if we're dealing with constantly high levels of chronic stress, which then lead to burnout and exhaustion of the system, right? Which burnout is an expression of the nervous system when we get into that freeze, or if it goes even further, into flop. And that's that complete immobilization of the body to preserve any resources that are left. And so that's what happens if we tap out the resources of the body, is that it will force a shutdown. Right? It's like when you haven't turned your computer off for a while and you've been downloading a lot of stuff, and then all of a sudden it starts running slow and then it just goes and goes black. It's a forced shutdown, right? And that's really important, is that, we do the things ahead of that so that we don't tax the system to the point of it needing to do that, right? And so, ideally, I'm not a computer genius, but, at least I know a little bit about it. Got to turn it off every now and again, let it rest. Okay? And so that leads to the next point, which is kind of an interesting, ironic juxtaposition, if you will. So even though we need to slow down, right, the body needs time. There's cycles to the nervous system, right? The circadian system, the ultradian rhythm as well. Those natural waves throughout the day of energy within the brain, and also within overall of when our waking hours and our sleep. We need the sleep, right? We need the rest. We ideally learn how to slow down and relax without completely shutting down or disassociating or feeling like we have to earn the rest. I'm just going to underline that one with my fingers and verbally. Is that something that's real for you? Do you feel like you need to do 482 things before you can take a break? do you feel like you have to accomplish a certain amount before you can justify slowing down? And that's important to look at, right? I know that that's something that I have looked at in the past, and that's really looking at equating your worthiness to enjoy and relax and slow down and appreciate life with how much effort you put in. And those things are oftentimes really tethered and tangled together for a lot of people. And if you notice that when you do slow down, it's difficult for you, this is because the system is so used to running at that mobilized, active level of stress, whether it's fight or flight or a mixed, blended state of the nervous system. It's so used to running that way that it's unfamiliar. So it's because it's unfamiliar, it's potentially threatening and dangerous because the brain doesn't like things that are unfamiliar. And so if you notice that it's challenging for you to just relax, or if you notice that when you're relaxing and say your partner comes into the room or your friend comes into the room and you're scrolling on social media and the first thing you find yourself doing is going like kind of bolting up and like, here I am, I'm paying attention. What are you doing? You know, and like you've been caught doing something naughty, just relaxing. Notice that, right? Notice that. I've definitely noticed that in myself. It's like that sort of, you know, you got to work hard to be worthy. You got to work hard to get it done. And, you know, you got to work hard to be anything in this world. And, you know, all of those stories that are programmed into our nervous system. And so just notice for you, if you have that difficulty, if we're really, you know, used to being in that go, 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 go mode, if it feels uncomfortable for you to slow down. And that's why a lot of times people have a difficulty, and I hear this a lot, like, I just can't meditate. I can't meditate. Or they try to meditate and they get really anxious. It's because we can't go from 100 miles an hour to 0 and not have any changes in the body, right? And so, you know, this is something that to look at because you can achieve that same state of presence and intentionality and groundedness that we experience from that state of regulation and anchored and connected awareness that we get when we're slowing down and practicing something like meditation. You can achieve that same state of being without, you know, pulling out the cushion and lighting the incense and turning on the ohms and like just trying to watch your breath. And there's nothing, that's a beautiful practice if that works for you, right? But for people that are really used to being in that active energy, go, 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 it can feel really defeating and frustrating to, you know, quote unquote, not be able to meditate or feeling like you get more anxious when you try to do that. So there's a lot of ways for you to come back to yourself and come back to that state of presence within yourself, which then shifts the state of the nervous system, shifts the brain activity, shifts the neurochemicals. Like it's so potent. It's so potent for how you feel that you can do that in any way that feels good for you. And let me give you permission, not that you need it, but, you know, let me remind you that you can do that in so many ways, right? My teacher says there's many paths to the same mountain. And so it's what works for you to bring you to that state of feeling grounded within yourself. Maybe it's dancing, maybe it is yoga, maybe it is meditation, maybe it's drawing, maybe it's, I don't know, playing the violin. Like there's no wrong way to take care of yourself is what I'm trying to say. So finding ways that feel really good that you can do, that you can savor. And it doesn't have to be 3.5 hours of doing the thing unless you want to. Little micro moments throughout the day, right? And that's where power pauses are so effective. These little moments throughout the day that ground you, center you, bring you back to that place of clarity and focus, back into the flow zone, back into your leadership energy, back into control of how you feel in the moment, all of those things. And that's really the impact of power pauses, and that's why they are the most effective way to build stress resilient and high performing teams and to really shift your inner state so that you feel grounded and centered within yourself. So that is number 8. Very good. And then the next one, number 9, is what's called cognitive difficulties. So cognitive is your cognition, your thinking, your conscious brain. Difficulties, you probably know what that word means. So cognitive difficulties means, essentially, a cuter way to say it would be brain glitches. Brain glitches, like for being forgetful, and having a hard time keeping a full sentence, maintaining your idea from thought to finish, maybe difficulty with concentration or making decisions, anything that involves your brain, right? And again, this has to do with the brain activity, right? If we're in the amygdala, those are things that aren't available to us when we're like, running from the tiger, which is, that evolutionary primary function of the system is survival. So that's important because the depletion of the system is running the organs, right? Running your body, running your brain, running your nervous system faster and harder constantly. So it's fatiguing, and it affects your ability to process information efficiently and effectively because there's prioritization elsewhere, right? So your brain is thinking like, we're in survival mode here. We don't need to be dreaming up the next masterpiece. Ain't got time for that now. So that's number 9. And then number 10 is really feeling detached from you, from yourself, right? Almost feeling like, for me at least, it felt like being a stranger within myself, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know who I am. Like, who is this? What is this feeling? Whose body am I in? Like, what is this experience? That to me is what it felt like, and feeling very detached and obviously being inside my body, but feeling very disconnected. I don't know if that's making sense, but really losing that golden thread of your why and your vision, because you're just almost cut off, right? And it's sort of, I guess I'm getting sort of the image of, okay, I got a different one. A grape. A grape is very plump, right? It's been nourished. It's got the water inside. It's got all the little sugars and all the little grapey smirsh inside. And then if it just sits in the sun, right? And say the sun is the stress. If it's just sitting in the sun and it's constantly getting the sun on, and it's heating, it's getting dehydrated, it's shrinking, and then it's a raisin. To me, when I was burnt out, I felt like a raisin. Now I feel like a grape. Hopefully this analogy makes a little bit of sense. I think it does. I don't know. Tell me, DM me, please. Half the time I feel like I'm just talking to myself on the phone here, and I'd love to get your feedback. Does the raisin analogy make sense? And so it's really what's happening here is we lose connection with parts of ourselves, right? And we are really connected to that part of ourselves that's overwhelmed and feeling depleted and exhausted, and we don't have access to the other parts that are excited and ambitious and hopeful and creative. And it's just an interesting experience within yourself that you might feel just kind of lost, right? And feeling like, I don't know where I'm at, I don't know who I am, and all that sort of thing. So those are the 10 subtle signs that I would love for you to just let me know if any of these are landing for you. So again, from the top, increased irritability, feeling disconnected from your work or your social life, physical symptoms in your body, chronic fatigue, reduced productivity, loss of interest in things that you used to love, getting sick more often, having a hard time slowing down and relaxing, or feeling like you need to earn it, having the fuzzy brain, the brain glitches, right? Cognitive difficulties if you want to get fancy, and then feeling detached from yourself and feeling disconnected and feeling like the raisin when you used to be the grape. And so, yeah, those are the 10 subtle signals that I'd really just love to share with you in case you're noticing any of these. It's really important to look through the lens of compassion and curiosity, right? Gratitude, because now you're noticing, okay, well, what can I do, right? What can I do to begin to shift this? And this is where it's really important to come back to the fundamentals of really connecting to your vision and what you want and see for yourself, and how you want to show up and how you want to feel, and how you can anchor into that identity and that energy today, right? First, by really exploring it, so you have it in your heart, you have it top of mind, to reconnect with that. And then that version of you, what do they do? How do they show up? How do they move? How do they walk? How do they talk? And really look at how you can begin to implement some of those core habits, right? Do you have a nourishing morning routine that's supporting you? Are you moving your body consistently? Are you doing things that quiet your mind and help you to connect back into the wisdom of your heart? Those are all really important things. Are you taking power pauses throughout the day because you're not a rock and therefore shouldn't be sitting in the chair all day and not moving? Right? And for that reason, right, because you want to get back into that powerful, confident, strong, efficient posture and energy in your body, but also because your brain does better when you take little breaks and you support the natural rhythms, right? It's like you wouldn't stay up for 3 days and expect yourself to be, performing at the top level. No, your brain would be fuzzy, you'd be kind of wobbly in your brain and probably wobbly in your body. Is that we push our brain like it can just go because we just think it can. But your brain does better if you take power pauses throughout the day to reset and refresh your energy, because what you're doing is you're giving it that chance to downshift, because you're shifting the state of your nervous system. You're changing the expression of what's happening in your body, because you've shifted from that activated, mobilized, energized state, and you're coming back to that nice steady state, right? You're coming back to that grounded, connected awareness, that regulation, that anchoring, the leadership energy. So power pauses. How are you working throughout the day? Are you doing things that nourish you? Are you doing things that light you up and bring you joy? Are you unwinding at the end of the day? Do you have a boundary for how late you're working? Like, what does your evening routine look like? These are all really core things that support you in your productivity and your performance and your energy, your presence. All of those things benefit when these things are in place. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. Send me a DM or reply to my email and let me know, did the raisin analogy make sense? And if you're interested in the create your own stress-free sales GPT, so that you can, at your fingertips, have a tool that knows you very intimately, that will give you the most encouraging, loving, supportive advice, so that you can show up fully in challenging conversations, in sales conversations, in on your workshops, in your business meetings, whatever it is, right, with your boss or whatever it is, so that you can really drop into that guidance at any time, so that you can really come back to that place of confidence and increase your productivity, increase your performance, but from the most powerful place, from a resourced place, from a regulated place, from a centered place. So if you're interested in that free workshop and learning to create one of those for yourself, send me a message as well, and I will make sure to send you some information. So take good care. See you next time. And thank you again for being part of this beautiful community. Bye-bye.